Please join us to gather together for Judy's presentation. It's really exciting. I'm going to take a moment and introduce Judy. Judy is the author of Peace to All Beings, which is a lovely book. If you haven't read it, it has prayers and it's a treatise about being kind to all animals, and it contains just information about what to do when you see an animal who was hit on the side of the road. Just how do you deal with that, and what can you do in a spiritual way to respond to that? And I like to call Judy the mother of vegan spirituality. She is such an inspiration to me, and I'm so grateful to have her here today. And without any further ado, I'm going to let Judy speak to you. She also formed the Circle of Compassion with Dr. Will Tuttle, who was our speaker last year, and they're good buddies. So if you have any other questions regarding that, she also runs a prayer circle for animals on Facebook, which is a group. If you have a companion animal that's struggling, you can post their picture and ask for people to help send prayers for you. So a lot of good soul work out there.
Thanks, Lisa. Why don't we all thank Lisa? This was a lot of work to put this together. Yeah, this is pretty major, putting something like this together, and it's just a beautiful space, and I'm just so glad to be here, and I really thank you, Lisa, for bringing me here. So, and I love seeing all your beautiful faces and being here for this really unique event. I mean, this is really pretty special, and very special that you all made the effort to come, because there's so many things we can choose to do, and you chose to come here. So I really appreciate it. And while we're all here, this is creating a tremendously compassionate energy field for animals all over the world. And I asked everyone on my prayer circle for animals announcement that goes out weekly to please pray on this day with us. So there's a lot of good vibes going on. And I just briefly wanted to say up here, I've got these brochures. These explain what the Circle of Compassion is that Will and Madeline Tuttle and I put together, I don't know how many years ago, but it's kind of dedicated to creating a circle of compassion around the world for animals and holding a vision that we really are going to make this work. And I don't know, being here and being with all of you, it feels even more real. We're going to get to a tipping point, and we really are going to create a vegan world, a non-violent world. So that vision, we've been holding that vision with the Circle of Compassion for quite a while, and I think there's about 700 people. Tara helps with it, and is it 800? Okay, so that's a lot of people, and that's a huge part of this, of the tipping point, is getting a lot of people to have this same vision. So, and then I've got this little flyer that I brought along, and this just has the prayers I wrote. You can say one for each day, and like the one for Monday is for farmed animals, and then there's a day for lab animals, and so on. So that is there, and then I've got my books up here. Oh, and my flag. I have this flag project. I don't know what made me do it. The animals, I think. My sister designed it because she's the artist, and we've been getting these sent all over the country, and I've got on my website now, which is peacetoallbeings.com, I've got a video of, or no, Yeah, it's on there. It is on there. I just put it on there. A video with music in the background of a lot of the flags where they've been placed around the country. So, yeah. So, I thought I'd just start out and briefly talk a little bit about how I got here, where I am right now. I was born in, well, Texas, but we moved to Kansas. I basically grew up in Kansas, pretty much like Texas. And my dad was a big game hunter, believe it or not. And my uncles ran the slaughterhouse stockyards in Kansas City. This was in the 50s when they had stockyards, which were slaughterhouses, in cities. And you younger people probably may not even know that I can remember driving into Kansas City to go to dinner at the Golden Ox restaurant, which was right there. All the cows were right there that were going to be slaughtered. The smell was horrible until you walked into the restaurant. You know, for some reason it didn't smell in there. And so I'm a little girl, right? And I'm surrounded by all these people who are literally glorifying meat eating, and the uncles were cowboys, right? And they were actually in some cases driving animals up there. This ended when the flood came in the 50s. And then they started going, wait a minute, people don't like this smell? I think we'll move all the slaughterhouses outside the city limits. And so that's been happening, actually. There was one in Emporia, Kansas, not too long ago, where we used to hold vigils, and it is now a packing plant, but it's not a slaughterhouse. They moved it outside the city limits. So, but anyway, my dad, he went over to Africa. He killed hundreds of animals, and we had animal heads all over the house, looking out of the walls, and bear rug and a zebra rug, and Dad was a really well-respected man. And people would come to the house for parties, and they'd be drinking their bourbon and smoking their cigarettes, and talking about how great this was, that he was so brave. and I admired my dad. He was a great surgeon also, and so people thought he was, like, I don't know, a really great person. Well, he was in a lot of ways. And he loved his dogs. He even wrote a really good poem about his hunting dog. So, but anyway, so I was born in 44, which is the year that the word vegan was coined. Okay, so we're talking Kansas, 44, the word vegetarian. I don't know if anybody knew that word, except for the Fillmores, who started Unity Church, but there was a wall around that, and we didn't go there. It was too scary, you know, because weird people live there. So, yeah, so I never heard the word vegetarian, and I didn't know we were eating animals. Most of us, unless you were raised vegan, probably started out not knowing you were eating animals, right? I mean, hamburgers grew on trees as far as McDonald's was concerned. And so I didn't understand what it was until we got some lambs. And my story about the lambs is in my book, one of my books. And it's probably similar to a lot of your stories when you first realized what meat was. We had about 10 lambs. We had about 7 acres. And of course, they were pets, right? That's why we got them, right? And so I'm playing with them and naming them. Nobody told me anything. I was probably about 10, 11, somewhere in there. And, well, one day they all disappeared. I came home from school and they're gone. So I think, I'm heartbroken, I'm crying because where are my friends? Well, and then guess what we had for dinner a few days later? And the parents don't think anything about that, right? Because they've been raised this way, and that's the way things are done. And besides, my uncles were cowboys, and they coordinated all this. They, whatever they did. And so that's when it hit me what meat was. But I still didn't know what to do. And I still hadn't heard the word vegetarian. So I quit. I just would feed meat to the dogs, and I got really sick because my other diet was donuts and frosted flakes and stuff like that. So I got pretty sick. So I thought, well, maybe I do have to eat meat. And then I got a little older and I started finding things out. Now, if there's anybody here young enough that doesn't know, I didn't have a computer or a cell phone or anything. So I found out just by making friends, with different people who, the hippies movement was starting, and there was a Indian restaurant that came to Kansas City called the Golden Temple, and I went, vegetarian, you can eat vegetables and survive. And so I started learning how to cook that way, and so that's I went vegetarian. Then animal rights was just getting started then. We had the environmental movement going pretty full swing, so I was going on the campaigns to shut down the the nuclear plants and all that. And my environmental friends were all vegetarian. This sounds weird because it's not that way so much now, but it was back then, at least where I was. And so we had this little group of protesters protesting baby harp seal thing and all of that, and learning about vegetarian food, but not vegan. We didn't know about vegan. I had never heard that word, and we didn't know what was going on with dairy and eggs. And it took a while before I found that out, and thanks to the animal rights groups, that's how that all kind of came out. Because I didn't have the concept pure in my mind like a lot of people who went vegan, maybe 100 years ago. It wasn't clear to me that animals are not here for us to use, period. They are not here for us. They're here for themselves. And I was still kind of laboring under old traditional ideas. Okay, well, I'm not going to eat the animals, but drink milk, and cheese. And of course, that's what I did, is I substituted cheese for meat. And so it was a while before I got that other piece. And that was because people were starting to talk about it and really get the word out. And videos were coming out and showing us what was happening on dairies and egg farms, and what was happening to the baby male chicks getting ground up and all those things. So in the meantime, while all this is going on, I adopted an atheist idea, philosophy, I guess you could say, because I had gone to an Episcopal church growing up, and there were hunters there. I mean, it's Sunday, let's go hunting after church. and a lot of the women were wearing fur coats, and it just didn't make any sense to me. Because to me it was just naturally the animals should be included, and that just seemed totally normal to me. And so, like all of you, I'm sure it was like every year the world gets a little weirder, You know, I mean, aren't we supposed to love each other? And wouldn't that include animals? And if you love your dog, why wouldn't you love all these other animals? And so I became an atheist, and I stayed that way for quite a while. So I didn't have so much of a spiritual life. I didn't think I did anyway, but I'll talk about that later. But then I had a tragedy happen in my life, and guess what? I had a religious awakening. It was like, okay, yeah, I can't do this alone. And so then it was just this potpourri of Native American religion and Hinduism. I'll try anything. I just want to know what this is about. But what it was for me, that experience, was I'm not alone. There is an energy of love that exists in this world that I was not aware of, and I sure didn't hear about it in the Episcopal Church. And that changed my spiritual life completely, turned it on its ear, and I started reading, learning, trying to figure out, am I going to follow a guru? What am I going to do here? And so I really basically studied a lot of the different religions, and studied with some medicine people, but they weren't vegan, and so it was a matter of trying to put all these values together and make sense out of it, and all the time looking at the world and going, why is the world so messed up? Why is there so much violence? And so I started seeing that all the different religions had a core belief, most of them, I should say, which is love one another. And it really is the most radical thing that's ever happened to humanity, probably, is that idea of love one another. Because the other idea is everybody for himself or herself. Just take care of yourself. This is a dog-eat-dog world, so to speak. Or a violent world. You have to protect yourself. Everyone is a potential enemy and all that. So the idea of loving one another was a radical turnaround for humanity. But what happened, most of the religions knew that because the founders or the seers, the gurus, could grasp that. But then it would get watered down, right? When you start trying to organize the religion and have rules and all of that stuff. So it got lost. That idea got lost in a lot of ways. So basically what was going on in me was this search for how you live that way, loving one another and animals at the same time. And so this book here, the Peace to All Beings book, is kind of the compilation of a lot of the research I did and the different religions' core beliefs that I found that are in there, and a lot of quotes from people that it amazed me that they were thinking this way about animals so long ago. Pythagoras, for example, was thinking about being kind to animals, not eating them, not wearing leather, and all those things. And Keith Akers just came out with a new book called Disciples, which he has done deep research, more research than any of us would ever want to do probably, into the life of Jesus and his followers, and how he believes, from what he's read, that Jesus was actually born into a vegan community, and that they were Jewish, and they were kind of a group apart from the the more traditional Jews who were still slaughtering animals in the temple, which temples were slaughterhouses back then, and they made a lot of money doing that, which just goes to show how religions can veer way off of their original purpose. So, but according to Keith's research, Jesus was born into an actual vegan group of people and learned their values. He learned their values, but he was such a great teacher that he was able to, teach that. And then what happened? Well, we have lost his message about animals, including animals. And so you hear, well, he ate fish and things like that. So, and that may not even be true, because fish may be a mistranslation of the original language. So, but anyway, it's a really interesting book if you want to read it. And there's more and more stuff coming out that's helping us see that this is a way to live that works, and not just for animals but for people too, and that we can love one another, and that encompasses all of life. And as Gandhi said, even the stones, even the stones are holy, and the earth, everything, and that is how we have to live. And of course, we won't survive if we don't learn how to live that way. Is that what I should do? Can everybody hear me if I'm like this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I just heard my voice get louder. So, okay, let me move on. Oh, one other thing on this page. Tina Volpe and I wrote this book called The Missing Piece, The Hidden Power of Our Kinship with Animals. And the reason we did that is because we were both getting stories from people about how their spiritual life had been improved by going vegan. And so I guess what I'm talking about is kind of like, for me, my spiritual life and my veganism kind of came together, and they complement each other. They are each other for me. So basically, what is vegan spirituality? To me, it's that sense, like I was talking about earlier, that we're living in a sea of love, that the universe is made of love, that the life force is loving, the universe is loving. And all we have to do is get in sync with that. And veganism is like, that's what it is. It's getting in sync with a loving universe and loving all of life that exists. And so it's really hard to define, because it's spirituality. And for some people that's like, no, I don't want to, I'm an agnostic, or I'm an atheist, or the word spirituality is offensive or something. But what I'm talking about is that feeling inside your heart that is just open and loving to all creatures, and you feel it. That's why you're vegan. And so it's a spiritual thing. It's something, excuse me, it's something beyond the physical. It's metaphysical. It's beyond, tapping your toes or talking to somebody. It's metaphysical. It's beyond the physical. It's something you feel so deep inside that it's really hard to describe it. And everybody has their own experience of it. Mine is, was like I was talking about. My awakening is, my own personal thing. Everybody's going to have their own. It doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with a church, or it could. So it's there are elements in the universe, beauty, creativity, and love, and all those great things that we're wanting for everyone. That is beyond the physical. That's what we feel inside in our hearts, and that's what we want to express outwardly. And so to me, if you're vegan, you have a spiritual life. Even if you don't want to label it that way, you could label it metaphysical or something like that. It's a deep part of you, or you wouldn't be vegan in the first place. You wouldn't be open to that kind of love that extends way out beyond your own self, way out beyond what's going to do you any good at all, because there's animals in Europe that we care about, animals in, all over the world that we care about, that we probably will never see, but we feel them suffering, and we long for their freedom, and that's a spiritual thing. So, that's my word for it. So, and vegan spirituality is why we're here. So I'm trying to put something really hard to describe into words, so pardon me for not being able to do it perfectly. I wanted to tell you a story that Will shared with me, and Terry, you probably heard it too, about the whales that saved those people. He met a woman from Vietnam, and this happened, I think, in the 70s, and they were trying to escape Vietnam, and there were 180 people on this little boat. And the storm came up, the boat capsized. They were far, far from land, and they were just kind of hanging on, hoping for the best, but kind of getting ready to die. And they suddenly felt the boat moving, and they looked around, and there were 4 whales, and it was very organized. There was 1 whale on the right, 1 on the left, and I believe 2 on the back. And they pushed that boat to shore. They got them close enough to where they could still get away, This took 2 days to do. 2 days. So you gotta ask, how did those whales know those people needed them, first of all? And why did they do it when we have been so cruel to them? Maybe not those people, but lots of other people, humanity. And why did they do it for 2 whole days, without eating and taking care of themselves? So to me, that's a perfect story that illustrates this loving universe that we live in. And I've heard, and you all have too, so many stories about animals saving people. Dolphins have saved many, many people, and even there's even a story, I think it might be in my book, about a turtle that saved a woman, a sea turtle that saved a woman who'd fallen overboard. And how did she find that woman? She fell off of a cruise ship, and out in the middle of the ocean, and that turtle held her up until a ship came by and saved her. And so they verified that it was indeed a turtle that she was on. So, we've got sanctuaries in our hearts for all these animals. And, there's lots of animal sanctuaries now, which is so wonderful, and a sign for us that this is going to happen. But we have sanctuaries in our hearts, even if we don't work at a sanctuary. Those animals are safe in our hearts. So, to me, veganism is the ultimate spirituality. And anyone, and we've all experienced this, I'm sure, anyone who goes to church or has a faith of some kind, meditates or whatever, and eats meat, we're now looking at them and going, why are they doing that? It should be really easy to explain to them, okay, if you're a really spiritual person, then you would want to be vegan, because it just makes sense. And but it's not that easy, as we all know. So I feel like everybody here has been called. It is a calling to be a vegan and to work and do what we do for animals that we may never see. But it's coming from our hearts, from our spirit. And so that's kind of my explanation of vegan spirituality. And then I wanted to talk about how vegan spirituality can help animals. It helps us in many, many ways, but that's why it helps animals, because it keeps us going. And but there's ways that it helps animals directly too. And I wrote down 12 ways, but there's hundreds. But one is empowerment. It empowers us to have a spiritual life, to I don't mean to go to church necessarily, but to know in your heart without any doubt that this is a loving universe, and that the universe is supporting us in this and helping us and moving things into position so that we can do our work. And that is very empowering. We're not doing this alone. I mean, all of us, but also, the tree energy, the sky energy, however you want to describe it, it's all helping us. Another way that it helps us is forgiveness, which is a big thing for us, because it's so hard to face what we have to face, to bear witness to the suffering of the animals. And it has a tendency to make us angry at the people that hurt the animals, or that don't seem to even care. And if we can learn through our spirituality to be forgiving, and I don't mean say it's okay to do that, but rather to say they don't know what they're doing. It's just kind of like Jesus said, forgive them for they know not what they do. And what that means to me is they don't understand those animals are our brothers and sisters. If they knew that, they would not do what they're doing. So, and if we can forgive them, then that makes us more powerful. That makes us better able to talk to them and help them understand and see what we see. And then a third one is prevention of burnout, which is a huge issue for us, because we are facing and bearing witness to so much cruelty. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure you get lots of stuff coming through your emails and Facebook and things like that, and seeing stuff that you just go, now they thought of something else horrible to do to animals. Just when I thought I knew everything, here's something else, and you can't even believe someone would do those things. And so we're facing that all the time, and it's there are times when we just do burn out. And when that happens, we need to know what the signs are, and we need to take care of ourselves. Just like they say on the plane, if the oxygen mask falls down, put it on you first and then the child after, so you don't pass out before you can take care of the child. So it's the same idea. If we get burned out, we need to get away and take care of ourselves, whatever that might be, a short hike, or maybe a week away, or whatever we can do to help ourselves, maybe even a year. But the idea is to be able to come back, to get back into the what shall we call it, the challenge, because we need everybody. we need everybody. The animals can't afford to lose anyone. So I wanted to read a couple of things that some people had sent me. A woman named Martha wrote, "I have felt nothing but despair for such a long time. I wish sometime we could all gather and meet and pray in person. In the meantime, you have eased that wrenching, despairing, powerless feeling." So I think she was responding to a Circle of Compassion prayer or something. But I saved it because it was so telling. I mean, I get that way too, and we just need each other to encourage each other. And then Patricia wrote, "I could never thank you enough. At times when many of us are inconsolable at what we cannot do to help those suffering and dying now, your prayers help us to bear witness and to remember them and to do what we can do, which is through our actions and spirits, to send out that energy field of compassion to encircle them and those oppressing them, that they may see and not do so anymore. I know for me that prayers are often read through tears, but they help." So that's another aspect of vegan spirituality, is helping each other cope with the stress of this work. It's traumatic in some ways, and we need each other, and we need that spiritual foundation. And it also helps us develop mindfulness and inner peace. The book that Tina and I wrote, The Missing Piece, is lots of stories of people who say that they got more inner peace once they went vegan. There's some people who were butchers in there whose stories we got, and some psychics who said they became more psychic after they went vegan, and lots of interesting stories like that. But the idea that to really get the total inner peace that we all want and that will create peace in the world, you can't be eating animals and the violence that comes with that. The energy field of violence around meat and milk and eggs is so intense, and when you take it into your body, it's very difficult to meditate and have a true sense of inner peace. So another thing the vegan spirituality helps is people who are homebound and can't get out to do protests or go to vegan potlucks or things like that. They can do a lot of good by joining us in our prayers and our focused thought. And I use the word prayer and focused thought kind of interchangeably. So if you prefer the word focused thought, that's fine. Because they're kind of the same thing. Prayer is just one word, easier to say. But it doesn't have to carry with it a lot of the baggage that, some people feel like it does. Another good thing, is that our vegan spirituality gives us permission to feel joy. And the joy comes from being connected to all of life, all sacred life. And that is a source of, to me, that is the source of such perfect joy. And so it's weird because on the one hand, we're bearing witness to the suffering, but on the other hand, we have access to this source of joy that wells up within us, just knowing that we're connected to all this love, and that animals can feel our love, and we can feel their love, and we're part of the world. Then we're part of nature. We're part of the energy field that we know is there. And so that's where the joy comes from, and that is a tremendous help in times of, facing the suffering. Then another thing that vegan spirituality helps with is learning that which probably all of you know, are very familiar with the idea that what we focus on expands. If you think about negative things, you're going to magnetize negative things into your life. And if you think positive things, you're going to tend to have more positive things happen. Well, we can apply that to the animals and to creating a vegan world, and which is the world we were always meant to live in. It was never meant to be like this, in my opinion anyway. We're meant, and we have been called to turn it around and bring it all back to the Garden of Eden, or whatever you want to call it, where all beings live in peace together and there isn't any violence and there isn't any war. And so our job, a big part of our job as vegan spirituality people and vegan activists, is to hold this vision just as clear as crystal of what we want, what we see the world could be. And and it's tricky because we're hearing about all the bad things, and we're going to do a little bit of this in our when we're in a circle, see that there's bad things, but there's so many good things happening now, and also we're just visualizing it like crazy. We're seeing how beautiful it's going to be, and knowing that it's true, and feeling the emotion of how good it's going to be. And another way of looking at it is, it's already that way. It just hasn't been manifested in the physical yet. It already exists as a vegan world, because that's what this energy field of love is all about. So it already exists, but it doesn't exist in the physical world yet. It exists in us and many, many other people, but not, as we know, we will be going, somewhere, and we will see people eating meat or advertising meat. So, and then another good thing of vegan spirituality is the community aspect, which Lisa has done such a wonderful thing of bringing us all together and starting these vegan spirituality meetups and potlucks here in California, and then there's some in Hawaii, I think, and some other places. And so if you all are not from here and can't get to Lisa's, you could start one of your own, a vegan spirituality potluck get-together thing, and she can help a lot with that. But spiritual community, so important. There are things I miss about church, the singing mainly, not the furs. There's a good feeling about everybody being kind of on the same page and everything. It's important, and we can encourage each other. So, and then directly, so all those things help the animals because they help us stay strong. But directly, we help them with this focused thought, because we're impacting them. I don't have proof, but I really believe that they feel our energy. I think that when we send out prayers or focused thought to them, directly to them, for a specific thing or a general thing, I think they feel it. And I on my way to the airport, a big truck full of chickens passed me, and your heart just breaks when that happens. And I just started sending them love as much as I could, just from my heart to them, and believing that they could feel some sort of comfort from that. And I hope they do. That reminds me, there's a prayer that I put together. Somebody asked me, what do we do when we pass a meat counter in a grocery store? And I thought, I mean, not as a protest, but as a prayer, something, for us, and to make it, possible to even go in a grocery store. And I really thought about that because I realized I just turn away. I look the other way. I don't want to see it. But I thought, no, she's right. I need to have something to say. And what came to me was, I see you and I love you. And I've been doing that ever since, and it helps so much, because when I say I see you, I'm saying I see your heart, I see your soul, see who you are, and I love you. And it's easy to remember, so you don't even have to write it on your hand. It's easy to remember, and it has helped me so much to say that. So I'm really grateful to whoever asked me to come up with that, because I'm sure I didn't come up with it. It just kind of came to me. And who knows, those animals have passed on that are in the meat counter, but it sends love into the loving universe. It adds love. It makes it bigger. It makes it more powerful. And you might be the only person that ever did that in that grocery store. And think of how that's changing the energy field around that. So then another of the 12 points is that this can help us reach faith people, if you want to. Some of us are burned out from doing that, but we often, run into people in our families and friendships who go to church, and their churches are still having potlucks with all kinds of meat and turkey dinners at Thanksgiving and all that. And it gives us a little bit more of a thinking of ourselves as spiritual people, helps us to communicate with them, ask them questions about their faith, and ask them about the love one another golden rule, and how do they think that might apply to animals. And you don't want to get into biblical arguments and stuff like that, but it can really help, I think, especially if they see you as having an interest in any faith at all. And then finally, the 12th point that I've kind of been addressing it all along is that we are together, we are elevating human consciousness from this low place where we have been for many, many centuries to this vegan consciousness of loving one another. We're doing that by being together today, and by if you join the prayer circle for animals or any of those things, and together or by yourself, focus. Just keep that focused intention that we are going to do this. We're going to make this happen. And we're doing it holistically on a physical level and a spiritual level. Why don't we talk about what this vegan world will look like? What looks possible in the near future, and for the maybe a little farther out, and any kinds of feelings of hope that you have. One terrific thing that just happened today was supposed to be the Korean dog, what was that called? The dog meat festival, and they were, anyway, they canceled it. So who has an idea to share? I love it. Yeah, convert slaughterhouses into sanctuaries. Yeah. Yeah, Tara.
I see the slaughterhouses and the stockyards being converted into organic gardens. I see the sheds full of wooden pallets with little sprouts of organic food growing.
Beautiful. Yeah. Why not? Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I see the water park amusement, like SeaWorld.
Uh-huh.
The rescue center.
Uh-huh. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Did everybody see the YouTube of the people rescuing the dolphins that beached themselves?
Yeah.
Wasn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Look it up on YouTube. I'd say maybe 30 or 40 dolphins.
I don't think that many, but there was a lot.
And they just came straight into the beach.
They got taken in by the wave.
Something. Yeah. And but there were people on the beach, thank heavens, and they just ran right out and grabbed them by the tails and pulled them back out. Yeah, it was really something. So that's a good visual, people rescuing animals. Yeah.
This has really been powerful to me, and I'm so grateful for everything that you shared.
Oh, thanks.
Unapologetic love. And, I did a lot of activism, and I don't know. I feel like there's so much power in sending love to people who feed animals, sending love to people who slaughter them, that raise them, that don't see and feel the awesome stuff that is animals. The more I've been sending love to people who just are not in that space, the more I had to kind of work at it to really build that muscle. Oh, I love you. And people are like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, I love you a whole lot. And the more that I have to strengthen that part of me, it is now a natural thing that I feel. And so there's no judgment and criticism and frustration.
Yeah.
How do you not know this? And how do you not pay attention? And that part of me is so muted now. And that I love this Spencer. It's saying it, like you say, if you believe it, you'll see it. There's so much power in visualization. We don't realize that we've got programs constantly running and recreating what we don't like because we put our attention on stuff that we see, and we're channeling energy and strength in what we don't want to see. And if you just start to know that animals are amazing, we don't have to explain it. They are amazing in their own right, and it's something that we all already internally know and get. But it hasn't materialized yet. It's just not manifested in the awareness of all life yet. But the operative word is yet.
Yeah.
So anchoring in the knowing and then the loving and sending love to everybody, the chicken killers and the dog fighters, all of them, it takes work. It really does. But that's kind of a burden of love, You got to kind of be on that end of things until you do see it and feel it everywhere. And then you just giggle in. And then so it's just really
Thanks.
to be in that
Yeah.
space. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a vision of just what the world would be like on the other side when we step into our potential to be leaders for each other, for the world, stewards for the world. Just a whole different way of relating to everyone, everything. Come across somebody we never even met going down the street. We're there to support them and help to support them in taking care of themselves, or seeing an animal or whatever. It's just so interconnected. It would dramatically change the way we relate to each other. I have a vision for a world like that, a world of leaders, inspirational leaders who will take care of each other and everything.
There's so many. Pardon me?
And ourselves.
Yes. There's so many giant thinkers who have said that we will always have war as long as we eat animals because it's such a violent thing to do, to kill an animal to eat, or for any other reason. And so it will eliminate war when the world is vegan. Yeah, so there's many benefits to people.
I see it eliminating patriarchy. I think patriarchy is like the birth of it, and that we're going. And I'm excited that I heard we're going to reach critical mass soon.
Mm-hmm.
And once we reach 10% of the population, it should go pretty viral after that.
Uh-huh.
And that's really coming. I heard it could happen as early as next year to go to 10%, but I'm not sure if that was in one article I read.
Uh-huh.
But that's really exciting to me.
Yes, it
It's
is.
going to become like more and more hip to do it, and more restaurants even now are carrying vegan options, and even, all through the Midwest and, not just in Los Angeles, although we may be a bigger hub for it.
Yeah, you are.
Have been,
Take it from me
Yeah.
in Kansas. But we do have a Cafe Gratitude in Kansas City now. It's interesting because I went to the grand opening, and I asked a bunch of people. None of them were vegan, but they went because it was like cool, it was hip to go.
right, that's
So-
what's going to be happening.
Yeah,
Really exciting.
which is another reason for us to be happy and show them what a great way to live this is. Yeah. Uh-huh.
A lot of us put applications and whatnot online, and it's hard for some people to comment on those. And now with this thinking about positive visualization, what I want to do is, put the video up, which may or may not be horrific, but put a question like, what would you like to see? What would your vision be turning this into something
Ah.
else? And I bet that there would be a lot of people who would be, receptive to
Uh-huh.
put that
Yeah.
positive vibe out instead of commenting on the negative.
Mhm.
Some people may be afraid to do or they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And that's for human and non-human activism.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it goes together. Violence toward people is tied intimately with violence to animals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would hope that as a community that we see that more. Because
Mhm.
we're animals, we're all animals.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah. And
ring on that, by the way.
yeah, it's nice. Was that an accident, or were we supposed to stop?
Oh, just an
Okay. Affirmation, yeah. Yes, that story you were telling me about the policeman not handling, or very badly handling, a situation with a young woman, and there's so much human violence, and people are asking, why are there all these school shootings and things? I think it has a lot to do with the cruelty to the animals, because it numbs people to violence. And so, yeah, it's so connected. And that's another thing that we can help people understand, that as long as there's violence to animals, there's going to be violence to people. And in churches especially, people of faith need to understand that when they have a potluck with a big turkey or something like that, they're condoning violence on a very subliminal level. And it's like, well, it's okay to be violent to that animal, so, I guess, yeah, people are just going to be violent, but it doesn't have to be that way. So,
They compare us to violent animals that eat meat.
well, because they want to be.
To do it, and
Uh-huh.
that's what we have to, educate people on.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Hi, I have a question. Maybe you could explain to given people for the violence in the community. I don't understand the benefit to me. I try to forgive, but I read something just sort of can't express some of the awful things people do. And I don't understand. I try to forgive people, but I don't understand anger.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of our biggest challenges in the vegan movement, is the anger that we have, and with very little to do with that anger. But I'll tell you a story about a fellow that I knew in Kansas City. We were trying to stop the park department from killing the deer in the park, and he was doing a good job at first of getting the press to come to our protests and everything. But then he was so angry that he got kicked out of all the meetings that we were trying to have with the park department. And then he found a severed deer head somewhere and put it on their porch, by their front door. Well, that didn't go over too well. It made him look wacky. And then he went beyond that, and he got blood from a slaughterhouse, and he called the press, told them what he was going to do, and on TV he poured it over himself at the park, and he basically had a breakdown, and he has given up animal rights altogether, and he's one of the reasons that I want to talk about this, because we don't want this to happen to anybody. The anger's real, but there is something we can do about it. And I think one of the things we can do is to see that those people are animals too. You know, they have been, just like I was, raised eating meat, and possibly maybe their dads hunted, and it didn't, maybe they were shamed into hunting, you know, because it happens to a lot of kids. You know, you're just not a man if you don't kill that animal or whatever. And we don't know their history. We don't know where they've been, what kind of traumas they've been through. And if you look at it that way, I think that helps to say, well, you know, they just haven't gotten it yet. And they don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They know that they're hunting, or they know that they're eating meat, but they don't know who they're killing. Or they don't realize that they paid somebody to kill someone for them. It's not clear in their heads. So there's a story in my Missing Piece book about a guy who was a hunter, and he tracked a deer, and it happened to him then. He had a spiritual awakening when he saw that was a person, a deer person, you know. And there's a wonderful poem that, if I had time, I'd read it, but you could come up and I'll show it to you, by a fellow who was hunting for geese, and he killed 2 geese, and they were mates, and they fell, and I can't even talk about it without crying. It's such a wonderful poem. And the girl put her wing over the boy, and it just broke his heart. And he threw his gun in the water and put his coat over the geese and walked away from hunting. So you never know where that little, you know, what that little thing's going to be that's going to open their heart. And so I think forgiveness is, it's incredibly important for the energy field, because we don't want to put a lot of anger out there. And so, because we need to just put, you know, super positive energy out there. But for us to cope with the anger, we need each other. And so, yeah, talk to each other and vent, and I can't believe they did that. And then, you know, let it dissipate. And whatever spiritual practice works for you, meditation or whatever, yoga, whatever it is, let that help. You know, like when you're doing yoga, you can dedicate that particular practice to that person, even, that you saw hurting an animal or that you heard about. Or you could dedicate a walk if you're going on a walk or something like that. Or even a meal, a vegan meal. So does that help? Okay. Yeah.
I feel that the energy of the slain animal, and whether it's more violent now than it was 10 or 20 years ago, but I feel like we're doing so much slaughtering and slaying that it's reaching a tipping point. It's getting to a peak. It's coming to a peak. And I feel that the increased violence that we're seeing is that this energy of the slaughtered animal, the terrifying feelings and the violence that's inflicted upon them and the disregard, as it's ingested in especially young sensitive people, And especially, we're experiencing a whole new evolution of the human being right now.
Mm-hmm.
The young people are more sensitive. There's indigos, rainbows, crystals.
That's true. Yeah.
Very clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm.
And they're bringing these foods that they, as sensitive individuals, should not be eating at all. Yet they are, because nobody knows any different. And they just very subliminally, subconsciously are acting out the very violence that they're ingesting.
Mm-hmm.
And, same with the dairy and, the increased violence towards the cows now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which translates toward women.
Towards women especially, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, turn that around.
Right. Right. So how to turn that around? Education and teaching
Mm-hmm.
and affirmations, healing and forgiveness, and especially towards the young people.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people teaching them and, letting them know that you wonderful beings that are born into this world that are so sensitive, you need to treat your body and your mind more sensitively and more spiritually minded. So reaching out to them and providing education to them and resources.
Yeah, there's more and more resources. There's so many good websites, and that's one of the good things that we're seeing. And a lot of Meet Out Mondays are happening at schools that are hopefully reaching these kids and helping them think about that. And it's just a Monday, but it's something, and it's a lot of schools too. So and there's well, I won't say some of these things because we're going to talk about that a little bit in our one of our ceremonies. Should we be wrapping this up? Okay.
He's had his hand up for a long time. Maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I guess if we were ending on this, because I usually have a way of thinking about things that are probably not best in this circle. But anyway, I think there is a lot of violence in nature, and I personally think in my more ideal world that violence will remain. So I don't think I want a world where there's peace to all beings if it means making them unnatural. Like, I would rather accept the violence in nature and come to terms with it. But I do hope that the day will come when we as humans are not using our immense social knowledge against other creatures. Our knowledge is what makes it really, really bad. If it wasn't for our knowledge, we would be no worse than, say, a tiger going and killing someone. It's only our knowledge that has made it into such a horrible thing that we think we need to stop it. And we should keep that in mind. Another thing is when we say peace to all beings, it's understood that you can't really be violent towards the non-living, but I think many of us mean peace to all living beings. And amongst them, I would say a very small number of vegans feel that that includes plants, but most of us don't really care for plants. But be aware of it that there are vegans who do care about plants too. Now, it doesn't mean that they care about plants the same way they care about animals, but they are aware of something that is violent towards plants when it doesn't need to be. They do want to be, and we sometimes get in the way of their being when there's no reason to.
Yeah.
And the last thing is about love one another. I feel that's really speaking to humans. We'd probably be better off saying love all beings. Because if not, there'll be many humans that say no, love one another. It's only for humans, because we're only asking humans to love one another. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's what happened to that idea. That radical idea of loving one another was supposed to mean all beings. But human beings in their arrogance decided, well, that's just for us. So, yeah. But as far as violence, animals being violent to each other, I don't know if you could even call it violence, really. It's not violent in the sense that we are violent, when we're consciously violent, or causing wars and that sort of thing. But there is a possibility that animals could return to supposedly a state of all being vegetarian. There have been some vegetarian lions, and
Little tyke.
Little tyke was, I guess, on TV.
But that's not balanced in nature, and they just brought wolves back into Yellowstone, and it created all of these other animals suddenly are thriving again.
I know.
Because they are
Right.
the balance.
Yeah.
And so there is something beyond.
Yes.
When human beings, take over everything and reproduce and take over the planet in multitudes, and then want to eat animals. I mean, whether we're meant to eat them or not as omnivores, we can't do it anymore if we want
Yeah.
to sustain the planet.
Yeah.
And the way that we're enslaving them and torturing them,
Mhm.
like Auschwitz,
Yes.
is just
Totally
horrifying.
Yeah. So we're going to stop that.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with the wolves and all those guys,
Right.
what they decide to do. Yes.
Right now that she was talking about the wolves,
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to bring this on the light side, and that's that a male who let's say pack is called an alpha male, correct?
Uh-huh.
But what would he be called if he was a vegetarian wolf? He would be called an alfalfa male. On the light, on the
I
light.
love it. I love it. And see, maybe that's part of our vision. But, really, considering what you're saying and all, we can't visualize the entire, every detail. We don't know about the carnivorous animals and what their destiny is. We really don't. But if we just live in love and project that out, visualize what we can, as far as no more slaughterhouses, no more animal killing by humans, it's gonna work its way out however it's supposed to. But the guiding light, I think, for us is creating a loving universe in the physical realm that already exists in the metaphysical realm.
Rabbit power.
What?
Rabbit power.
Rabbit power.
Thank you, Judy, for leading that discussion and for your really motivating sharing.
Thank you all very much for listening to me. I loved it.
Yay!